So this is a piece of stone. This is a stone that I picked up on my walk this morning, and yep, I'm going to use this to make a piece of art. No specialist skills required. We're just going to go with the flow, see where it takes us. So here we go. I'm going to just draw around it. So it gets a little bit stuck on the bumps, but I'm just going to use the stone as a template. So I'm just going to draw around it. It doesn't matter if it moves, the line is wobbly. I'm going to go around it a couple of times to just see the marks that we make. So there we go, it's 2 lines going around it, and I quite like that. So I'm going to just continue on drawing around the shape, moving it about the paper and overlapping it, and going around a couple of times and just see what shapes we make. You can use any shape, you don't need to use a stone, you can find anything that you can draw around and use this technique. If you're going to paint on the image afterwards, you need to make sure that the pen is a waterproof pen so it doesn't smudge or smear, but essentially you can use anything. You could do this with a felt pen on some newspaper and just make patterns by just drawing around things and doing a repeating pattern. So continuing on over the page, over the piece of paper, repeating the same shape over and over. I'm liking the wonky lines. I'm liking the quirkiness of that line. The fact that I'm having to go around it twice, and that pleases me. So I started in the middle of the page, and this is what we've got. So I'm just going to go over these lines again, just darken them up. So they're wobbly lines, so I'm just going to do wobbly lines and just go over it a few times, and just to sharpen those lines up a bit, to go darken them, just go over them, reinforce the mark on the page, and see where we go. So the pattern is becoming a little bit clearer, a little bit sharper, a little bit darker on the page, and this is all from drawing round a stone. And in my eyes, I've got a very pleasing pattern that's emerged in the middle of the page, ready for the next stage. So I've got a small watercolour pack here to put some colours on. You could use anything, you could use felt pen. So for ease of use, I've coloured up a swatch so I know which colours are where in my palette, and I'm going to use the lid to mix up the colours. I've also got a tub of water, a little bottle, a spritzer bottle to spray some water on my palette, and there's some kitchen paper underneath, and I also have a wodge of kitchen paper to wipe my brushes on. And my go-to brush today is a round sable brush, which is a number 5. So I'm going to use 2 colours. I'm going to use the burnt sienna and the ultramarine, so basically blue and orange. So I'm ready to mix up my colours. So I'm going to spray in the lid, in the palette, some water, and also I'm going to spray on the paints to make those wet. So I'm making the burnt sienna particularly wet, and the ultramarine, those are the ones I'm concentrating on, and just getting some water on those, ready to mix up. So you want to swirl up a good colour and mix up a reasonable quantity of the burnt sienna in the palette. Now the other thing I do when I'm mixing up colours is when I wipe my brush, so getting the excess off of here, I will then get a piece of paper, piece of watercolour paper, and I will just rub off the excess paint on that paper. This then gives me a collection of papers which has got random colours on, which are great for cutting up and for future projects and using for collage. And we're going to do the same with the ultramarine. So I'm just going to move all this out of the way. So basically what I thought I would do is paint each shape one colour. So I'm going to start off with just washing in some burnt sienna in this first shape. So I'm going to do the next shape in a slightly stronger, darker version of the burnt sienna. So just wash it in all over, but it's a stronger, more intense colour. And I'm going to do another one over here, a slightly lighter, again, burnt sienna. I've got 7 shapes, 3 of which I've done in the burnt sienna, so the other 4 are going to be in the ultramarine. So I'm going to start painting these in, and because the burnt sienna isn't dry, you'll see that as you go over you do get some bleeding and blending of the colours, and that's fine. I'm quite happy with that. If you don't want that to happen, then you obviously need to leave the other colours to dry first before you go over the top. But with watercolour paints, when you go over a watercolour with another watercolour, you do get some sort of reactivation happening again, so you will always get some sort of bleeding, but wet on wet you get more bleeding than wet on dry. So just keep adding your colours. I tried to do a different intensity of colour on each different shape, and build up the pattern as you go. This is dry now, all nice and dry. So what are we going to do next? So what I'm liking actually are these wiggly lines, and so I'm going to go in on top and do some more wiggly lines. I'm going to go in with a black liner pen. I've got it's a Unipin fine liner 0.3. It's a waterproof marker pen. I'm going to draw on top. Well, I like these wiggly lines, so I'm going to continue drawing wiggly lines in these spaces. So I'm just going to turn it round now, and I'm just going to do wiggly lines backwards and forwards, tracing the shape, the outside edge of the shape. You can decide any pattern you like, and basically it's just doodling, filling that shape with a doodle. Okay, so that's one done, and I'm now going to do the same on each of the outside panels of the pattern and see where it see what it looks like. So I've done a few bits now, and I'm just going to do this panel now, and I'm just going to follow the outside contours backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. So I've completed all the outside panels, and I'm now just going to work on the alternate shapes within the image. So every other shape will be filled in with the same wiggly line. So there we are, there's the final version. It's always good fun to try it in a mount or a frame. But remember, it doesn't matter. It's just a piece of paper. It can end up in the recycling. But the fun is in the doodling and the making, and I hope you enjoyed it.